Hello there everyone, welcome to Shadowman Stories. I am your storyteller and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious, where are you watching from and what time is it in your part of the world? Now, find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Joseph Caldwell, but folks around here just call me Joe. I've been a ranger in these Arkansas swamps for nearly 15 years now, and there's something about Boggy Creek that gets under your skin. Not in a bad way, most of the time. It's more like the land becomes a part of you. Tonight feels different though. I'm standing at the edge of the water, watching how the cypress and tupelo trees rise up from the murky depths like ancient guardians. Their twisted branches reach toward the sky, draped in Spanish moss that sways in the gentle breeze. These old trees have seen more than any human ever will. The sounds of the swamp wrap around me like an old familiar blanket. Bullfrogs croak their deep songs, while crickets and tree frogs join in, creating a natural symphony that belongs only to this forgotten place. I close my eyes and just listen. This is my peace. When I open my eyes again, something feels off. The night birds that usually call back and forth have gone quiet. Even the frogs seem to be holding their breath. An eerie stillness settles over the bayou, like the whole swamp is waiting for something to happen. I look up, trying to spot the moon, but the thick canopy above blocks most of its light. What little makes it through creates strange, shifting shadows on the water's surface. Everything looks half hidden, secrets lurking just beyond what I can see clearly. My boat drifts deeper into the Fook bottoms. I'm a good 20 miles from anything resembling civilization. No paved roads, no cell service, nothing but wilderness. In every direction, most people would feel scared out here alone. But this swamp has always felt more like home than anywhere with four walls. Suddenly, a great blue heron erupts from the water just ahead, its massive wings beating frantically. Its cry echoes across the water, not the usual call, but something that sounds almost like a warning. Strange, herons don't typically take flight like that, unless something spooks them. I look to the horizon and see dark clouds building. A summer storm is rolling in, the kind that brings sheets of rain and lightning that turns night into day for brief, brilliant moments. The air feels heavy with coming rain, pressing down on everything. The humidity carries all the smells of the swamp right to me. Rich, black earth from the banks, plants growing and dying all at once. And that distinctive water smell that's neither good nor bad, just alive. I take a deep breath of it, feeling it fill my lungs. That's when I hear it, something big crashing through the underbrush on the nearby shore. Not a deer or wild hog, something much larger. The sound of snapping branches and splashing water continues for a few seconds, then stops completely. I strain my eyes trying to see through the gloom, but there's nothing visible among the tangle of vegetation. I should turn back. Every instinct tells me to turn back, but instead, I find myself steering my boat toward the sound. In the Boggy Creek bottoms, curiosity isn't just a bad habit, it might be the last mistake you ever make. I wasn't always alone out here in these swamps. 5 years back, I had a different life. A small house in town, a beautiful wife named Sarah, and our baby girl, Emma. We weren't rich, but we were happy. That all changed one night, when I was working a late shift. A call came in about a fire at my address. I drove like a madman, but by the time I got there, well, there are some things a man can't talk about without falling apart. Let's just say I was too late. The doctors said I couldn't have saved them even if I'd been there. But that doesn't stop me from seeing their faces in my dreams every night. After that, I couldn't stand being around people with their sad eyes and whispered conversations that stopped when I walked in. So I took this job deep in the swamp where my family has worked for generations. My grandfather taught my father, and my father taught me everything about these waters, where to fish, which paths to take, how to read the weather in the way the birds fly. People say I've changed. My hair went gray almost overnight after the fire. I don't eat much anymore, and sleep, that's just a memory most nights. The mirror shows a man with hollow cheeks and dark circles under his eyes. I'm only 38, but I look much older. About a week ago, my boss sent someone to work with me, Dr. Elizabeth Harper from the University of Arkansas. She studies animals that might or might not exist. A cryptozoologist, she calls herself. Normally I'd work alone, but there have been strange reports from folks fishing in the area. Things gone missing. weird sounds. One family even said they saw something that walked like a man but definitely wasn't one. You know these swamps better than anyone, Joe, my boss had said. Show Dr. Harper around, help her collect whatever samples she needs. So now, I've got company, whether I want it or not. She's smart, I'll give her that. Knows more scientific names for plants and animals than I knew existed. But book smarts only get you so far in a place like this. Around my neck, I wear my wedding ring on a simple chain. I tried taking it off once, about a year after the fire. My hand shook so bad I couldn't do it. So there it stays, a reminder of what I've lost and what I couldn't protect. You seem distracted today, Dr. Harper says, breaking into my thoughts. She's sitting at the other end of the boat, writing in her notebook. Her red hair is pulled back in a ponytail, and her face is already dotted with mosquito bites despite the repellent I told her to use. Just listening to the swamp, I tell her it talks if you know how to hear it. She smiles like she thinks I'm being poetic, but I'm dead serious. I know every twist and turn of these waters, every game trail and fishing hole. At least, I thought I did. Until yesterday, when we found something I couldn't explain. Do you think we'll find more tracks today? She asks, excitement clear in her voice. I don't answer right away. The truth is, I've never seen anything like what we found yesterday in all my years here. And something deep in my gut, the same feeling that warns me when a storm is coming or when I'm being watched by a gator, tells me we should turn around and never come back. But I've already failed to protect my family once. I won't let anything happen to Dr. Harper on my watch. If there's something dangerous out here, better I find it first. If it's out there, we'll find it, I say finally, steering the boat deeper into the swamp. What I don't say is that I'm afraid it might find us first. The morning sun had barely pushed through the trees when we found them. A family of wild hogs, or what was left of them. I've seen animal kills before, clean ones from hunters, messy ones from gators or bears. This was different. My God, Dr. Harper whispered, kneeling beside the largest carcass. Look at these claw marks. I didn't want to look, but I forced myself. Deep gashes ran along the hog's side, spaced wider than my hand could spread. Whatever did this had incredible strength. The adult hog must have weighed over 300 pounds, but it had been tossed around like a rag doll. Could be a bear, I said, not believing it myself. Dr. Harper shook her head. Bears don't do this. These are precise cuts, almost deliberate. That's when I noticed the silence, not the peaceful quiet of early morning, but a complete absence of sound. No birds calling, no insects buzzing. Even the constant background noise of water moving had somehow faded away. It was as if the whole swamp was holding its breath. Listen, I said. To what? She asked. Exactly. Nothing's making a sound. Her eyes widened as she realized what I meant. In the swamp, silence isn't natural. It means every living thing is hiding, afraid of something bigger and meaner than itself. We moved away from the kill site, following the shoreline. That's when I saw them, footprints pressed deep into the mud. Big ones. I laid my hand beside one for scale. It measured at least 18 inches long, with 5 clear toe impressions, like a human foot, but much larger. Are you seeing this? Dr. Harper was practically bouncing with excitement. I wasn't excited. I was scared. Nothing that walks on 2 legs in these parts should leave prints that size. As we continued along the shore, a smell hit us, awful and strong, like wet animal fur mixed with something rotten. It was so powerful it made my eyes water. What is that? Dr. Harper covered her nose with her sleeve. Before I could answer, we rounded a bend and found an aluminum fishing boat flipped upside down in the shallows. The side was caved in like something had punched it. Dark stains that could only be blood spattered the exposed bottom, but there was no sign of whoever had been using it. We need to call this in, I said, reaching for my radio. When I turned it on, instead of the usual static, a strange sound came through the speaker, a low, rumbling growl that almost sounded like words. I switched it off quickly. Must be storm interference. Dr. Harper didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue. She was staring at something in the distance, her face pale. Joe, she whispered, did you hear that? At first, I heard nothing. Then it came a long, mournful howl that echoed through the trees. It started low, then rose to a pitch that made the hair on my arm stand up. I've heard wolves, coyotes, big cats. This wasn't like any of them. It sounded almost human, but twisted somehow. That's not possible, I murmured. There aren't any animals in Arkansas that make that sound. While I was still trying to make sense of what we'd heard, Dr. Harper wandered a few yards away and crouched down by some thorny bushes. "Joe, come look at this." She was pointing at some coarse, dark hairs caught in the thorns. "I need to collect these," she said, pulling sample bags from her pocket. "They don't match any known species in this region." As she worked, I noticed a strange fog beginning to rise from the water. Not the usual morning mist, but something thicker that seemed to cling to everything it touched. Within minutes, the familiar landmarks I used to navigate were hidden behind a wall of white. "We should head back," I said, suddenly uneasy. "Weather's turning." We got back in the boat, and I started the motor, confident I could find our way. Even in the fog, I'd done it 100 times before. But something was wrong. Every channel I took seemed to lead deeper into the swamp, not out of it. Places I knew like the back of my hand suddenly seemed unfamiliar. After an hour of going in circles, Dr. Harper touched my arm. "Joe," she said quietly, "I think we're being led somewhere." "That's crazy talk," I told her, but a chill ran down my spine, because deep down I felt it too, like something was watching us, herding us exactly where it wanted us to go. And wherever that was, I had a feeling we wouldn't like what was waiting for us when we got there. The fog grew thicker as the day wore on. By mid-afternoon, I couldn't see more than 10 feet in any direction. The air felt heavy, making it hard to breathe. We'd been going in circles for hours, and my tank was running low on gas. "We need to find shore and wait this out," I told Dr. Harper, who nodded silently. The excitement in her eyes had been replaced by fear. I steered toward what looked like a small island, cutting the engine as we drifted into the shallows. The silence pressed in around us, broken only by the soft lapping of water against the boat. "Stay here," I said, grabbing my shotgun from under the seat. "I'll check if it's safe." The mud sucked at my boots as I stepped onto shore. Thick vegetation blocked my view in every direction. I took a few careful steps forward, trying to find a clearing where we could wait out the fog. That's when I felt it, a presence so powerful it made my skin crawl. I wasn't alone. I turned slowly, raising my shotgun. At first, I saw nothing. Then, the bushes about 20 yards away began to move. Not from the wind, there wasn't any pitches, something was pushing through them. The creature that stepped into the small clearing was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It stood upright on 2 legs, towering at least 9 feet tall. Its body was covered in dark, matted fur that hung in wet clumps. But it was the eyes that froze me in place, glowing red in the dim light, filled with an intelligence that had no place in an animal's gaze. In that moment, I understood what deer feel when they freeze in headlights. I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was prey. A smell hit me, the same rotten musk we'd noticed earlier, but 100 times stronger. My stomach turned, and my head began to spin. I fought to stay conscious as the creature took another step forward. Its massive arms hung nearly to the ground, ending in hands with long, curved claws. When it opened its mouth, I saw rows of yellowish teeth, sharp as razors. My training kicked in, and I fired the shotgun. The blast echoed through the swamp, and the creature staggered back. Dark blood oozed from its shoulder, but it didn't fall. Instead, it looked down at the wound with what seemed like curiosity. As I watched in horror, the bleeding slowed, then stopped completely. It roared then, a sound so loud it shook the trees around us. I turned and ran back toward the boat, my heart pounding in my chest. "Start the engine," I shouted to Dr. Harper as I splashed through the shallows. "Now." Her hands shook as she turned the key. The engine sputtered once, twice, then roared to life. I jumped in, nearly capsizing us in my panic. "Go, go, go," I yelled, looking back at the shore. The creature had reached the water's edge. It tilted its head, watching us with those terrible red eyes. Then, to my shock, it stepped into the water and began to wade toward us. "It's following us," Dr. Harper whispered, her face white with fear. I pushed the throttle all the way forward, and we shied away from the island. For a few minutes, I thought we'd escaped. Then I heard a splash behind us. I looked back to see the monster swimming after us, moving through the water with powerful strokes. "It can't be that fast," I muttered, but it was gaining on us. As it got closer, I saw it reach out and grab the back of our boat. The metal railing bent like it was made of paper under its grip. The whole boat shuddered and slowed. I grabbed my shotgun again and fired directly at its face. It released the boat with a howl, sinking beneath the surface. Did you kill it? Dr. Harper asked, her voice trembling. Before I could answer, a thick fog began to form around us, not natural mist, but something that seemed to come from the water itself. It smelled like the creature's breath, foul and damp. The fog clouded my vision and made my thoughts fuzzy, like I couldn't remember which way was home anymore. Through the haze, I could see shapes moving in the water all around us, or maybe it was just one shape, circling. Sometimes I caught glimpses of those red eyes watching from different directions, as if it was playing with us. It's toying with us, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, like a cat with mice. The boat drifted slowly in the current. Every time I tried to steer us in one direction, something would splash nearby, herding us another way. Branches seemed to reach out from the shoreline, grabbing at our clothing as we passed. Twice we nearly capsized when the boat hit submerged logs, or at least, I told myself they were logs. As darkness began to fall, the creature's game turned more aggressive. It would surge from the water, rock the boat violently, then disappear again. Each time, it seemed to be testing how close it could get before we could react. Why doesn't it just attack? Dr. Harper whispered. I remembered stories my grandfather used to tell, not just about creatures in the woods, but about how some predators enjoy the fear of their prey almost as much as the killing. Because it's having fun, I said quietly. And because it knows we can't escape. As if to prove my point, the engine suddenly sputtered and died. We were out of gas, floating helplessly in the creature's domain. Night fell over the swamp, and all we could do was wait for whatever came next. In the pitch darkness, every sound became a threat. The gentle splash of water against the boat, the creak of branches in the wind, the occasional plop of something dropping into the water nearby. Dr. Harper sat huddled at one end of the boat, her flashlight clutched in white-knuckled hands. We need to move, I whispered, though I wasn't sure why I was keeping my voice down. That thing knew exactly where we were. There's an old hunting cabin about 2 miles from here. My grandfather built it decades ago. How can you possibly know where we are? She asked. We've been going in circles all day. I pointed to a tall cypress tree with a distinctive split trunk. I know these swamps better than I know the lines on my own hand. That tree means we're near the South Fork. The cabin's due east. What I didn't tell her was why I wanted to reach that particular cabin. Years ago, my grandfather had told me stories about a monster in these swamps. Stories I'd always thought were meant to scare me away from dangerous waters. But one night, after too many whiskeys, he'd shown me something hidden under the floorboards of that cabin, something he said had saved his life once. We'll have to paddle, I said, reaching for the emergency, or stored under the seat. Stay low and quiet. We began moving silently through the dark water. Every few minutes, I'd pause to listen. The creature was still out there. I could feel it watching us, but it had gone strangely quiet. Why isn't it attacking? Dr. Harper whispered. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe it's waiting for something. As if answering my question, thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm that had been threatening all day was finally moving in. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the swamp around us. In that split second of light, I saw it, a massive shape moving parallel to our boat, just beneath the water's surface. Keep paddling, I said, trying to keep the fear out of my voice. Don't stop, no matter what happens. The rain started falling, light at first, then in heavy sheets that made it hard to see. The wind picked up, rocking our small boat dangerously. Each flash of lightning showed the creature getting closer, circling us like a shark. Finally, I spotted the weathered dock of my grandfather's cabin through the rain. There I pointed, just a little further. That's when it decided to make its move. The boat lurched violently as something massive struck it from below. Dr. Harper screamed as she was thrown forward. I barely managed to grab her arm before she went overboard. Run for the cabin when we reached the dock, I shouted over the storm. Don't look back. With one final, desperate push, I drove the boat into the shallow water near the dock. We jumped out, splashing through knee-deep water toward the shore. Behind us, I heard a roar of frustration as our boat was torn apart. We reached the cabin, just as lightning struck a nearby tree, illuminating the path ahead of us. I threw. Moses looked away, because I've seen it before. 50 years ago, when I was just a boy, it took my older brother. He pulled back his shirt collar, revealing 2 small, round scars on his neck just like the marks on the deer we'd found. It bit you, he nodded. He didn't finish. Something scared it off, but ever since, I've been connected to it somehow. I can feel when it's near. I can almost hear its thoughts. A shiver ran down my spine. Why didn't you tell me this before? Would you have believed me? He asked simply. He was right. I wouldn't have. So how do we stop it? I asked. Moses reached into his pack and pulled out a small cloth bundle. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing several items: a small vial of dark liquid, a handful of dried herbs, and what looked like a human tooth, yellowed with age. This is why I came with you today, he said. I've felt it growing stronger for weeks. I knew it was waking up again. Suddenly, Moses grabbed my arm. It's here. I spun around, rifle ready, but saw nothing. Then I felt it, a presence, heavy and dark, pressing down on us from all sides. Your knife, Moses said urgently. The silver in the blade. That's what we need. I pulled my grandfather's knife from my belt, the silver inlay gleaming dully. In the pre-dawn light, silver can hurt it, Moses explained. But to kill it, you need to drive the blade through its heart while it's feeding. That's the only time it's vulnerable, when it's solid enough to feed. And how do we make it feed? I asked, though I already feared the answer. Moses looked me straight in the eyes. It wants me. It's wanted to finish what it started 50 years ago. And now it wants you to, because of what happened to your brother, Tommy, I whispered. What does my brother have to do with this? The beast feeds on guilt as much as fear, Moses said. Your guilt over your brother's death is like a beacon to it. It's been drawing you here for years, whether you knew it or not. A low growl came from behind us. We turned to see the beast, emerging from the water, its yellow eyes fixed on Moses. Listen carefully, Moses said quickly. When it takes me, it will be distracted. That's when you must strike. Don't hesitate. Don't think. Just act. Takes you. No, there has to be another way. There isn't. Moses cut me off. This is why I came here, to end this, once and for all. Before I could stop him, Moses stepped forward, away from me, toward the beast. He began chanting words in a language I didn't recognize, his voice growing stronger with each syllable. The beast crouched low, muscles tensing. I raised my rifle, but Moses waved me off. The silver, he reminded me. Nothing else will work. The beast charged with impossible speed. Moses stood his ground, still chanting. When they collided, I expected blood, violence. Instead, the beast seemed to melt into Moses, like smoke being drawn into his body. Moses fell to his knees, his body shaking violently. When he looked up at me, his eyes had changed. They glowed with the same yellow light as the beast's. Now, Bill, he gasped, his voice strained as if fighting for control. Do it now. I hesitated for just a second, seeing my friend's face. That second nearly cost me everything. Moses, or what used to be Moses, lunged at me with inhuman speed. I barely dodged, feeling claws tear through my jacket sleeve. He came at me again, but this time I was ready. As he reached for me, I drove my grandfather's silver-inlaid knife directly into his chest. A scream tore through the swamp, part human, part animal, so loud it shook leaves from the trees. Moses's body convulsed, and a dark shape began to pull free from him, like a second skin peeling away. The beast took solid form again, the knife still embedded in its chest. It thrashed and howled, black blood pouring from the wound. I felt a pull, like something was being drawn out of me too. My vision darkened at the edges, and my legs gave way beneath me. As I fell to my knees, I saw Tommy standing among the cypress trees. He looked just as he had that day in the woods, 12 years old, with that same crooked smile. It's okay, Bill, he seemed to say, though his lips didn't move. It wasn't your fault. The beast gave one final, earth-shaking howl. The sound made every tree in the swamp shudder, their leaves falling like rain around us. Then it collapsed, its body seeming to dissolve into black smoke that sank into the ground. I crawled to Moses, but I already knew it was too late. He had given everything to trap the beast, to make it solid enough for my knife to kill it. His eyes, now back to normal, looked peaceful. Thank you, I whispered, closing his eyes gently. I must have passed out then, because the next thing I remember is waking up as the sun broke through the trees. I felt different, changed in ways I couldn't explain. The guilt I'd carried for so long over Tommy's death seemed lighter somehow, though not completely gone. As I prepared to leave the island with Moses's body, I noticed something strange. My reflection in the water showed my face, but my eyes had changed. They weren't quite yellow like the beast's, but they weren't my pale blue anymore either. Some part of the beast had transferred to me when I killed it. I could feel it inside a darkness, a hunger that hadn't been there before. I've spent the years since that day fighting those urges. Most days I win. Some days are harder than others, but I stay in the swamp, guarding that island, making sure the beast stays buried. Sometimes, when the moon is full and the swamp falls quiet, I swear I can see Moses standing among the cypress trees. He nods to me, like he's saying I'm doing a good job. Then he fades away until the next time. I don't know if I'm alive in the normal sense anymore, but I do know this: as long as I'm here, the beast of Bladenborough will never hunt again. My name is Daniel Kowalski, but everyone just calls me Dan. What I'm about to tell you happened back in 1987, deep in the Manistee National Forest in Michigan. I still have nightmares about it. That day started like any other day on patrol. The pine needles made a soft carpet under my boots as I walked through the forest. I always loved that sound, quiet, gentle, like walking on a cushion. The wind moved through the tall evergreens, making them whisper to each other. Secrets of the forest. I used to think I felt at peace out there among the trees. After what I'd seen as a cop in Detroit, this quiet job as a forest ranger was exactly what I needed. The forest was like a giant cathedral, tall, quiet, and somehow holy. But then, something strange happened. Everything got quiet. And I mean really quiet. No birds singing, no squirrels chattering, nothing. It was like someone had turned off all the sound in the world. That's when I first felt something was wrong. The sun was getting lower, sending golden beams through the trees. Pretty, but it made the shadows deeper, darker. I remember thinking how far I was from anything. 40 miles of wilderness separated me from the nearest town or phone. Not that I minded usually, but that day the thought made me uneasy. I spotted a red squirrel up on a pine branch. It was making angry noises at me, like squirrels do. Then, suddenly, mid-chatter, it just stopped, froze completely. Then it disappeared into the branches, faster than I'd ever seen a squirrel move. Dark clouds were rolling in above the trees. We get some nasty storms up by the Great Lakes, and this one looked mean. The air felt heavy, the way it does before rain. But there was something else in the air too, a smell I couldn't place. Something wild, something dangerous. That's when I saw them footprints in the soft dirt of the trail. At first, I thought wolf, but they were way too big. Michigan has wolves, sure, but nothing that would leave prints this size. I crouched down to look closer, and a chill ran down my spine. These weren't just big wolf prints. The stride was all wrong. These prints looked like whatever made them had been walking on two legs. I stood up slowly, suddenly very aware of how quiet the forest had become. The back of my neck tingled. I wasn't alone out here, and whatever was with me wasn't something that should exist. I guess I should tell you a bit about myself. I'm 34, Polish American through and through. Before I became a forest ranger, I was a cop in Detroit for almost 10 years. I left the city to find some peace. City police work. It changes you, and not always for the better. The thing that haunts me most happened my last year on the force. I shot a teenager during a robbery call. He had what looked like a gun, turned out to be a realistic toy. His face shows up in my dreams almost every night. Sometimes I wake up shouting, covered in sweat. The department shrink called it PTSD, said I had anger issues too. Maybe he was right. Nature became my therapy. Out in the woods, things made sense in a way they never did in the city. No moral gray areas, just life doing what life does. At least, that's what I thought back then. I'm not a big guy, but I'm solid. People tell me I look older than I am. Got gray showing up at my temples already. My dad said, Kowalski, men go gray early. We earn it by seeing too much of the world. Guess he was right about that. I wasn't alone in the forest that day. Amanda Rivers was with me, a photographer for National Geographic. She was 26, smart as a whip, and fearless in a way that sometimes worried me. She was there taking pictures of some endangered birds for a magazine article. "These tracks are weird, Dan," she said, crouching down beside me. "What do you think?" "Made them." I shook my head and touched the dog tags I always wear. My father's from World War II. It's a habit I have when I'm thinking or worried. Dad was a brave man. Wearing his tags reminds me to live up to the Kowalski name. I've walked every trail and fire road in this forest for 4 years. I told Amanda, never seen anything like this. That's one thing about me. I don't back down easy. My ex-wife called it being stubborn as a mule. Maybe she was right. But out in the forest that day, I started to wonder if sometimes backing down is the smart move. We should follow them, Amanda said, already getting her camera ready. I nodded, but something in my gut told me we were about to cross a line. All my police training taught me how to handle human threats, angry drunks, desperate junkies, armed robbers. But what we were about to face, well, the police academy doesn't exactly cover what to do when the forest itself turns against you. Stay close, I told Amanda as we started following the strange tracks deeper into the woods. And keep your eyes open. She nodded, but I could see the excitement in her eyes. She was thinking about an amazing photo opportunity. I was thinking about how we were 40 miles from help, with a storm coming in, following tracks that shouldn't exist. Looking back now, I wish we'd turned around right then. But we didn't. We walked forward, heading straight into a nightmare. We followed those strange tracks for about half an hour. The forest got thicker, darker. Then Amanda grabbed my arm and pointed. Dan, look, about 15 feet up in a tree hung what was left of a deer. Not just any deer, a full-grown buck. Its throat was torn out, and the body was hanging over a branch like someone, or something, had put it there. Blood still dripped down the trunk. Mountain lion, Amanda whispered, but we both knew better. Mountain lions don't hang their kills that high, and they don't tear out throats like that. I realized then that the forest was completely silent. No birds, no insects. Even the wind had stopped. It was like the whole world was holding its breath. The footprints continued past the tree. Looking closer, I noticed something I'd missed before. The prints sometimes showed for paws, like a normal wolf or dog. But then they'd change to just 2 feet, like whatever made them could walk on its hind legs. Do you smell that? Amanda asked. I nodded. The air was thick with the metallic smell of fresh blood, but underneath was something else, a wild, musky odor I'd never smelled before. Like wet dog, but stronger, much stronger. We kept going, and about a quarter-mile later, we found a campsite, or what was left of one. A tent was shredded to ribbons. Sleeping bags were torn apart. Stuffing scattered everywhere. A cooler had been smashed open, its contents gone. Where are the campers? Amanda whispered, her camera forgotten at her side. I shook my head, not wanting to say what I was thinking. My hand went to my service pistol. I always carried it, even though forest rangers don't usually. Old habits. My radio crackled suddenly, making us both jump. Instead of the usual static, a sound came through that made my skin crawl. A howl. But not like any wolf I'd ever heard. It was deeper, louder, and mixed in was something that sounded almost ... human, like a screaming howl. The sound echoed through the trees from all directions. We couldn't tell where it was coming from. We need to go, I said, grabbing Amanda's arm. Now. But she was staring at something on a nearby tree trunk. Claw marks, fresh ones. I followed her gaze and felt my blood run cold. The marks were at least 12 feet off the ground. As we turned to leave, fog started rolling in. Thick, white fog that shouldn't have been there on a stormy day. Within minutes, we could barely see 10 feet ahead. This way, I said, trying to sound confident. The ranger station is east. We walked for 20 minutes, but something was wrong. We should have hit a trail I knew well, but instead, the forest just got thicker. Somehow, every path we took seemed to lead us deeper in, away from safety. Dan, Amanda whispered, her voice shaking. I think we're being herded. The word sent a chill through me because I knew she was right. Whatever was out there wasn't just hunting us, it was playing with us. The fog was getting thicker when we heard it, branches breaking nearby, something big moving fast through the underbrush. We froze. Then I saw it, just for a second, through a gap in the trees, 7 feet tall at least, standing on 2 legs, a body like a man but covered in dark fur. And its face, God, its face was like a wolf's, but wrong somehow, too big. Its eyes caught the fading light and glowed amber, like 2 burning coals in the fog. A fear hit me that I'd never felt before, not like being scared of a man with a gun or a knife. This was older, deeper, like my ancestors felt when they huddled around fires, knowing there were things with teeth out in the dark. Run, I shouted to Amanda, pulling my gun. We crashed through the forest, branches whipping our faces. Behind us, I heard it coming, not running like a person, not even running like a wolf, something in between, sometimes on 4 legs, sometimes on too fast. I fired 2 shots behind us. The creature howled, not in pain, but in rage. The sound shook the trees around us. There, Amanda pointed to a fallen log. We ducked behind it, trying to catch our breath. "What is that thing?" she gasped. "I don't know," I admitted. "Some kind of wolf, maybe. But ... But wolves don't walk on two legs," she finished. The woods went quiet again. Too quiet. I peered over the log, but saw nothing except fog and trees. "I think it's gone," I whispered. Then something hit the log from behind, sending us both sprawling. The creature stood over us, and I got my first clear look at it. Its fur was matted, with blood and dirt. Its mouth was full of teeth like ivory knives. It smelled like death and wild animal. I fired my gun point blank. The bullet hit it in the shoulder. It should have gone down. Instead, it just snarled, showing those terrible teeth. Before my eyes, the wound began to close. It lunged at Amanda, but I tackled her out of the way. We rolled down a small hill and came up running. For the next few hours, it was like a nightmare game of hide and seek. Sometimes the creature would disappear for 30 minutes, and we'd think we'd lost it. Then we'd hear that howl, closer than before. Other times, it would charge us with shocking speed, forcing us to separate and hide. "It's smart," Amanda whispered during one quiet moment. "It's trying to split us up." She was right. This wasn't just an animal acting on instinct. It was using tactics. The worst part was the howling. Sometimes far, sometimes near, and sometimes it sounded like there were answers from far away, like it was calling to others of its kind. As night began to fall, the creature seemed to get bolder. Once it came so close, I could feel its hot breath on my neck before I managed to scramble up a rocky slope it couldn't climb easily. "We can't keep this up all night," Amanda said. Her face was scratched from branches, and fear had made her eyes huge. I looked around, trying to figure out where we were. The fog made it hard, but I suddenly realized we weren't far from the old fire tower. "I know where we need to go," I said. "But it won't be easy. That thing is between us and the tower." "What's at the tower?" she asked. "High ground," I said, "and maybe a radio that still works." We set off, moving as quietly as we could, but it felt like the forest itself was against us now. Thorns caught our clothes. Roots seemed to rise up to trip us, and all the while, I could feel it watching us, playing with us, enjoying our fear. I'd faced down armed men before, without blinking, but this was something humans weren't meant to face. Something from an older, darker world. Something that had been waiting in these ancient woods for someone like us to wander too far from safety. The fire tower was about a mile away. In normal times, I could walk that in 15 minutes, but nothing was normal anymore. "We need to make a run for it," I told Amanda. "The tower has a ladder. If we can get up there, that thing might not be able to follow." She nodded, her face pale in the growing darkness. The storm clouds had blocked what little daylight was left. "Dan," she whispered, "if only one of us makes it, tell people what happened here." I squeezed her shoulder. "We're both making it. Stay close." We started moving faster toward the tower. The forest became a blur of dark trees and fog. Behind us, I heard it coming, getting closer. Then we hit a clearing and saw it, the old fire tower standing like a skeleton against the darkening sky. "Run," I yelled. We sprinted across the open ground. 20 feet from the tower, Amanda screamed. I turned to see the dogman burst from the trees. It was running on all fours now, faster than anything I'd ever seen. I pulled my gun and fired my last 3 bullets. One hit its leg, making it stumble, buying us precious seconds. "Climb." I pushed Amanda toward the ladder. She started up while I looked around desperately for a weapon. There was a small shed near the tower base. I broke the lock with a rock and found what I needed, a gas can and some road flares. An idea formed in my mind, a crazy, desperate idea. Amanda was halfway up the tower when I heard a growl behind me. The dogman stood at the edge of the clearing, watching me with those burning eyes. Its wounded leg had already healed. I grabbed the gas can and ran to the tower. "Keep climbing," I shouted to Amanda. I started up after her, the gas can hanging from my belt. The creature charged, reaching the tower just as I climbed past its reach. Its claws scraped against the metal, making a sound that set my teeth on edge. We reached the top platform, gasping for breath. The tower swayed slightly in the wind. Below us, the dogman circled, occasionally leaping up to claw at the tower's legs. "What now?" Amanda asked. I held up the gas can. I'm going to make that thing sorry it ever found us. I explained my plan. We'd use the gasoline as bait, pouring some down the tower. When the creature came close, I'd drop a lit flare. That's insane, she said. What if you miss? I won't, I said, with more confidence than I felt. We waited until the dogman was directly below us. I poured a stream of gasoline down. The smell drew it closer. I struck a flare. Get back from the edge, I warned Amanda. But as she moved, her foot caught on a loose board. She stumbled backward, losing her balance. I lunged for her, dropping the flare, but my fingers just brushed her jacket as she fell. I watched in horror as Amanda plummeted, her scream cutting through the night air. She hit the ground with a sickening sound, her neck twisting at an impossible angle. She didn't move again. No, I roared, grief and rage filling me. Below, the flare had ignited the gasoline. The dogman howled as flames erupted around it, but it didn't flee. Instead, it began climbing the tower. Its fur singed, but its eyes fixed on me with terrible purpose. I had nothing left. No gun, no more flares. Just my bare hands and my father's dog tags around my neck. As the creature reached the platform, I thought of my dad, how he'd faced down enemies in the war, how he never backed down. The dogman lunged at me, its jaws snapping. I dodged and grabbed its fur, using its momentum to swing around behind it. Before it could turn, I looped my father's dog tag chain around its throat and pulled with every ounce of strength I had. The creature thrashed wildly, its claws raked my chest, tearing deep. Pain exploded through me, but I held on, tightening the chain. We struggled on the edge of the platform, the tower swaying dangerously. Minutes passed like hours. My vision began to darken from pain and exhaustion, but slowly, the creature's struggles weakened. Finally, it went limp. I collapsed beside it, barely conscious. As I lay there, bleeding, I heard a sound that chilled me more than anything that night. Howls, distant, but coming closer. The dogman's pack, answering its earlier calls. Using the last of my strength, I pushed the creature's body off the platform. It fell to the ground below with a heavy thud. The howls stopped. Then, unbelievably, I heard whining. Looking down through blurry eyes, I saw shapes in the fog. Wolf-like creatures, but huge, standing on two legs. They circled their fallen leader, then raised their heads to look at me. For a long moment, we stared at each other. Then, as one, they melted back into the forest. I passed out, certain I would die there. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital. Hikers had found me and called for help. Amanda's body was recovered, officially listed as a fatal fall. No one found the dogman's body. No one believed my story. But that's not the end. A month later, the full moon rose, and I felt a strange burning in the claw marks on my chest. My teeth ached. My senses sharpened. I chained myself in that same fire tower that night. By midnight, I understood the full horror of what had happened. The dogman hadn't just marked me with its claws, it had infected me. Now, every full moon, I returned to the tower. I chain myself there, fighting the beast that tries to emerge from within me. Sometimes I win. Sometimes I don't remember what happens, but I wake with blood on my hands. I protect the forest now in more ways than one. I keep hikers away from certain areas, and I keep the beast within me, away from innocent people. This is my curse, my penance, maybe, for failing to save Amanda, for killing that boy in Detroit, for all the violence in my past. But sometimes, on those nights when the moon is full and the beast is strong, I hear howls in the distance, calling to me, and part of me wants to answer. My name is Maria Santos. I've been a ranger at Big Bend National Park for almost 8 years now, and I thought I knew every inch of this desert. I thought I understood its moods, its dangers. I was wrong. It was late July 1995 when everything changed. The Chihuahuan Desert stretched out before me like an endless sea of sand and scrub, baking under a sun that showed no mercy. I remember standing on that mesa, watching heat waves dance across the landscape, distorting everything in their path. The desert has a way of playing tricks on your eyes, making you see things that aren't there, or hiding things that are. The wind picked up, whistling through the ocotolo and prickly pear cacti, creating that lonely desert song I'd known my whole life. My grandmother used to say that when the wind changes its tune, something is coming. I should have listened. This land runs in my blood. My family has lived here for generations, long before it became a national park. My ancestors walked these same paths, drank from the same hidden springs. Sometimes, when I'm alone out here, I can almost feel them walking beside me. That day, something felt different. The air grew heavy, and an odd silence fell over the desert. Even the coyotes, who never seemed to stop their howling, went quiet. In the desert, silence is never a good sign. I checked my watch. Almost sunset. The sky was turning a deep, blood red, casting long shadows across the rocky ground. Everything looked alien, unfamiliar. I was deep in the back country, at least 100 miles from any real town. Out here, you're on your own. A roadrunner darted between the creosote bushes in front of me, then stopped dead in its tracks. Its head jerked up, alert, as if it sensed something I couldn't. Then it was gone, disappearing into the brush faster than I'd ever seen one move. Looking toward the horizon, I noticed dark storm clouds building. A desert thunderstorm was coming, rare, violent, and dangerous. Flash floods can appear in seconds, turning dry creek beds into raging rivers. I knew that better than anyone. The air shimmered with heat waves, making the landscape wobble and dance. In that distortion, anything could hide, anything could be. Watching, I felt a chill despite the heat. As darkness began to fall, I noticed strange lights flickering in the distance. They were too regular, too organized to be natural. Not lightning, not campfires. Something else. Something that didn't belong in my desert. I should have turned back then. I should have radioed for backup. But curiosity has always been my weakness. And so I headed toward those lights, not knowing that I was walking straight into a nightmare. I wasn't alone on this trip. Dr. Robert Mitchell walked beside me, his tall frame casting a long shadow. He was a cryptozoologist, someone who studies animals that might not exist. At least, that's how he explained it to me. The Park Service paired us up after the strange cattle deaths started. "You really think we'll find something out here?" I asked him, watching as he adjusted his heavy backpack. "Something is killing. Livestock, Maria, and whatever it is, it's not a mountain lion or a coyote," he answered, not looking up from his equipment. "I'm 30 years old, but these desert lands have aged my soul. My family has ranched here for 3 generations. My grandfather used to tell me stories about this place, some beautiful, some terrifying. I never knew which ones to believe. The weight of my sister's death still hangs around my neck like a stone. 2 years ago, a flash flood tore through a canyon where we were hiking. I made it out. Lucia didn't. Sometimes I still hear her calling for help in my dreams." "You're okay?" Dr. Mitchell asked, noticing my silence. I nodded, touching the small silver milagro of the Virgin of Guadalupe that I wear around my neck. It was my grandmother's. She said it would protect me from evil. I've never needed that protection more than now. "If there's something strange out here, we'll find it," I told him, trying to sound confident. "I know every waterhole and cave in this park." Dr. Mitchell smiled. "That's why you're the perfect partner for this investigation." What I didn't tell him was how torn I felt between the world of science he represented and the beliefs of my family. My mother would say that some things in this desert aren't meant to be studied. They're meant to be feared. We made camp as the stars came out, billions of them painting the sky in a way you only see in places far from city lights. Dr. Mitchell checked his equipment while I built a small fire. "What exactly are we looking for?" I asked, watching the flames dance. "The locals are calling it El Chupacabra, the goat sucker," he said, his face serious in the firelight. "Something that drains animals of blood." I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to my own ears. My abuela used to scare us with those stories. All legends start somewhere, Maria. His eyes met mine across the fire. Something real inspires. The story. That night, I couldn't sleep. The desert, usually so familiar to me, felt strange and threatening. I kept thinking about what my grandmother always said. The desert holds no secrets from our people. But as I stared up at the stars, I wondered if some things were older than human memory, older even than the ancient petroglyphs carved by those who came before us. I didn't know it then, but in the morning we would find the first body, and nothing in my life would ever be the same again. We found the dead cow just after sunrise. It was lying on its side, eyes open and empty, its body completely dry, like something had sucked every drop of blood from it. There were just 2 small holes in its neck, clean and precise, like someone had used a tool. "This is exactly like the others," Dr. Mitchell said, kneeling beside the animal. He pulled on latex gloves and gently touched the wounds. "No animal I know makes marks like these." I stood back, a sick feeling growing in my stomach. 20 years of living in this desert, and I'd never seen anything like this. The strangest part was the silence. No flies buzzing around the body. No scavengers coming to feast. It was like every living thing was staying away. "Listen," I whispered to Dr. Mitchell. He looked up. "I don't hear anything." "Exactly. No insects, no lizards, nothing." I scanned the ground around us, and look at these. I pointed to a set of footprints in the sand. They had 3 toes, like a bird, but bigger, much bigger, and the space between each print was huge, as if whatever made them could leap incredible distances. "These aren't from any animal native to Big Bend," I said. Dr. Mitchell took pictures, his hands shaking slightly. "The spacing suggests something that can jump 15, maybe 20 feet at a time." A smell hit me then, like metal and rotten eggs mixed together. The smell of blood and something else, something that didn't belong in this desert. It made my stomach turn. "We should keep moving," I said, trying to breathe through my mouth. About a mile away, we found something even stranger, a small rancher's camp, completely abandoned. A pot of beans still sat above a fire pit. The food dried out and burned. Whoever was here had left in a hurry, not even taking time to grab their gear. "Maria, come look at this," Dr. Mitchell called from the other side of the camp. When I reached him, he was holding my radio, which had been in my backpack. It was making a high-pitched sound, almost too high to hear, but it made my head throb with pain. "It just started doing this," he said, wincing. I took it from him and tried to turn it offed, but nothing worked. Then, as suddenly as it started, the noise stopped. The silence that followed felt even worse. That's when we heard it, a shriek that echoed off the canyon walls. It sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before. Part bat, part something I couldn't even name. The sound raised goosebumps on my arms. "What was that?" Dr. Mitchell whispered, his face pale. Before I could answer, another sound reached us, the soft tap of something landing on rock. Then another, like footsteps, but too light, too quick. We found the water tanks next, large metal containers that local ranchers keep filled for their livestock. Each one had the same puncture marks we'd seen on the cow, and they were all empty. "Whatever did this has incredible strength," Dr. Mitchell said, running his fingers over the holes in the thick metal. "Jaws strong enough to pierce steel." The day grew hotter, and the air started to shimmer with heat mirages. I saw impossible things in those waves. Cities floating in the sky, lakes where there was only sand, and shapes moving just at the edge of my vision. "We need to get back to the jeep," I said, feeling more uneasy by the minute. But when we reached our vehicle, the engine wouldn't start. Steam poured from under the hood. The radiator was bone dry. Something drained it, Dr. Mitchell said, his voice barely above a whisper. Just like the cow, we were stranded, 100 miles from help, with night coming soon. And something was out there, watching us. I could feel its eyes on my back. As the sun began to set, we made camp near the jeep as darkness fell, building a fire bigger than was safe or smart. But the flames made us feel better, like they could keep away whatever was out there in the night. "We should take turns sleeping," I told Dr. Mitchell, checking my rifle for the 3rd time. 4 hours each. He nodded, his face looking older in the firelight. "What do you think is out there, Maria?" "Really?" I stared into the darkness beyond. "Our circle of light? I don't know. But my grandmother used to say there are things in this desert older than people. Things that were here first. I came looking for a new species," he said quietly. "But this feels like something." The moon rose, nearly full, casting silver light across the landscape. Every shadow looked like it was moving. Every rock seemed to shift when I looked away. I took first watch, sitting with my back to the fire, scanning the darkness. The desert at night is never really quiet. There's always the whisper of wind, the distant yip of coyotes. But tonight, there was nothing. Like the whole desert was holding its breath. Around midnight, I saw it for the first time. Just a shape at first, moving between 2 large boulders, about 50 yards away. Then it stepped into a patch of moonlight, and my blood turned cold. It stood on 2 legs like a person, but nothing else about it was human. It was about 5 feet tall, with scaly skin that looked grey-green in the moonlight. Spines ran down its back, and its eyes were huge and black, reflecting the firelight like mirrors. "Mitchell," I whispered, not taking my eyes off the creature. "Wake up." Slowly he sat up, following my gaze. When he saw it, he gasped. The sound made the creature turn its head toward us with a jerky, bird-like motion. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. Something about it felt ancient and evil, like looking at something that shouldn't exist in our world. My hand went to the silver milagro around my neck, gripping it tightly. "Is that ... double quotes," Mitchell started to say. "El Chupacabra," I finished for him, raising my rifle. The creature moved so fast I barely saw it. 1 second it was 50 yards away. The next it was halfway to our camp. It jumped like nothing I'd ever seen, covering 30 feet in a single bound. I fired, the shot echoing off the canyon walls. I know I hit it. I saw the impact, but it barely slowed down. It just hissed, a sound that made my skin crawl, and jumped again. Dr. Mitchell scrambled for his bag, pulling out a small pistol. "Aim for the head," he shouted, but the creature was moving too fast, circling our camp, sometimes seeming to hover in the air for impossible seconds before dropping back to the ground. It was studying us, learning our movements. Those black eyes never blinked. We backed up against the jeep, weapons pointed outward. The fire cast long shadows that seemed to move on their own. The air felt thick and hard to breathe, like something was sucking the life from it. "We need to make a run for those rocks," I said, nodding toward a formation about 100 yards away. "There's a cave there we can defend." Mitchell nodded, his face dripping with sweat despite the cool night air. "On 3. But before we could move, the creature attacked. It came straight for Mitchell, moving faster than anything should be able to move. He fired twice, but it didn't stop. Its clawed hand struck him across the chest, sending him sprawling. I fired again and again, the shots deafening in the night. The creature shrieked that same sound we'd heard earlier, like a banshee wail. It leaped away, disappearing into the darkness. Mitchell was bleeding but alive. "Did you see that?" he gasped as I helped him up. "It was studying us. It's intelligent." I reloaded my rifle with shaking hands. "We need to move. Now." As we stumbled toward the rocks, I couldn't shake the feeling that the desert itself had turned against us. Cacti seemed to block our path, forcing us to go the long way around. The sand shifted under our feet, making us sink with each step. And all the while, I could feel those black eyes watching, waiting for us to make a mistake. We reached the cave just as the moon disappeared behind clouds. Dr. Mitchell was breathing hard, clutching his wounded chest. I helped him sit down against the rock wall and checked his injury in the beam of my flashlight. "It's not deep," I told him, though the 3 parallel cuts looked angry and red, "but we need to clean it." As I bandaged him with supplies from his pack, a thought hit me like lightning. "The petroglyphs," I whispered. "What?" Mitchell winced as I tightened the bandage. "There are ancient rock paintings about 2 miles from here. My ancestors made them thousands of years ago." I met his eyes in the dim light. "Some of them show a creature that looks just like what we saw." Mitchell's eyes widened. "Your people fought this thing before." I nodded slowly. "According to the stories my grandmother told, they found a way to defeat it. We need to get to those petroglyphs." Outside, the wind picked up, howling through the canyon like a living thing. The creature shrieked in response. Closer now. It was hunting us. "I've been studying cryptids for 20 years, Mitchell said, his voice changing. There was an excitement in it that hadn't been there before. "This is the discovery of a lifetime. We need to capture it, study it." I stared at him. "Are you crazy? That thing nearly killed you. It's killed who knows how many animals. We need to stop it, not study it." But I could see the change in his eyes. The scientist in him was taking over, pushing away fear, pushing away common sense. He pulled a small case from his pack and opened it, revealing several syringes. "Powerful tranquilizer," he explained. "Enough to take down an elephant." "Put those away," I said firmly. "We're going to the petroglyphs now." Mitchell reluctantly followed me as we slipped out of the cave and into the night. The clouds covered the moon completely now, making it nearly impossible to see. I led the way by memory and instinct, feeling the land with my feet as much as seeing it with my eyes. The creature followed us. I could hear it moving through the brush, sometimes far away, sometimes terrifyingly close. It was toying with us. "It's hurting us," Mitchell whispered as we ducked behind a large boulder, like a predator. I knew he was right. It was smart, smarter than any animal had a right to be, and it seemed to know exactly where we were going. The canyon narrowed as we approached the site of the petroglyphs. Ancient drawings covered the rock walls, hunters, animals, and something else. Something with spines down its back and black, empty eyes. "Look," I said, pointing my flashlight beam at the images. They knew about it. Mitchell stepped closer to the wall, fascinated. These must be thousands of years old. As he studied the drawings, I noticed something at their center, a symbol that looked like a star inside a circle. My grandmother's Milagro had the same design. "This is it," I whispered. "This is how they fought it." The air grew suddenly cold, and that same metallic, sulfur smell filled the canyon. The creature was close, very close. "Mitchell," I said, turning, "we need to." But he was already moving away from me, toward the mouth of the canyon, his tranquilizer gun raised. "I can end this, Maria. I can capture it. Think what we could learn." "No," I shouted, but it was too late. The chupacabra appeared at the canyon entrance, its black eyes reflecting our flashlight beams. Mitchell fired the tranquilizer, the dart hitting the creature in the chest. It screeched, a sound so high and terrible I had to cover my ears. But it didn't fall. It just pulled the dart out with clawed fingers and stared at Mitchell with those empty eyes. Then it moved, faster than I could track. One moment Mitchell was standing 20 feet away from me. The next he was in the creature's grasp. Lifted off the ground, I raised my rifle but couldn't fire. They were too close together. I could only watch in horror as the creature brought its mouth to Mitchell's neck. There was a terrible sound, wet and sucking, and Mitchell's body seemed to collapse in on itself, like a balloon losing air. When the creature dropped him, he was nothing but skin stretched over bone, completely drained. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. I screamed, the sound echoing off the canyon walls. The creature turned its attention to me. My hand found the Milagro around my neck, and I tore it free, holding it up like a shield. The silver caught the beam of my fallen flashlight, sending light dancing across the canyon walls. The creature hesitated. In that moment, I understood what I had to do. The petroglyphs showed warriors holding up similar symbols, driving the creature back toward a crack in the earth. There was a chasm not far from here, a deep fissure that local legends said had no bottom. I began to move backward, still holding up the silver Milagro. The creature followed, hissing, but keeping its distance from the shining silver. "You don't belong here," I told it, my voice shaking but determined. "This is our land. My people beat you once. We'll do it again," it shrieked. In response, the sound making the rocks themselves vibrate, but it kept following as I led it toward the chasm. When I felt the edge behind my heels, I knew I had to act. The creature gathered itself to leap. I could see the tension in its powerful legs. But before it could jump, I threw them directly at it. The silver struck it in the center of its chest, exactly where the star symbol had been on the petroglyphs. The creature screamed, a sound so terrible and loud that it shook the earth beneath my feet. Rocks began to fall from the canyon walls as the ground itself split open. The chasm widened, and the creature lost its footing, claws scrabbling at the edge. For one moment, our eyes met, those black, ancient eyes staring into mine. Then it fell, its scream fading as it disappeared into the darkness below. The earth continued to shake, and I ran, stumbling back toward the petroglyphs as rocks crashed down around me. When I finally reached safety, I collapsed, exhausted and in shock. I don't remember much about the next day. A border patrol helicopter found me wandering near the main road, dehydrated and confused. I told them about Mitchell, but when a search team went back, they found no body, just the abandoned jeep and our scattered supplies. No one believed my story about the creature. They said it was heat stroke or trauma from watching my colleague fall into a ravine during an earthquake. The official report listed him as missing, presumed dead. But I know what I saw, and something changed in me. That night, I can see things now, shadows where there shouldn't be shadows, darkness in people's eyes that wasn't there before. Like that creature opened a door in my mind that can never be closed again. I still work as a ranger at Big Bend. Some days, I stand guard at the petroglyph site, warning hikers away from the chasm. Most think I'm just doing my job. They don't know I'm protecting them from what might still be down there, waiting in the darkness. Because the desert holds many secrets, and some things are older than human memory.